Hey y'all, welcome to Pleiadian Point of View. I'm Peyton with Peyton Energetics, and I'm a Pleiadian channel and starseed coach. So in today's video, the Pleiadians wanted to chat with us a little bit about one of the ways that we accidentally block our manifestations. But before we jump into talking about this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button if you haven't done that yet. So what the P's wanted to talk to us about today is something that we often don't realize we're doing. And it's one of the ways that we block what we're trying to create in our lives. And the way that we often do that is through the energy of disappointment. Now, if you have been on your spiritual path for a while, there's probably a lot of things that you have wanted to create in your life. One of the first things we're taught as we start our spiritual journey is how to manifest, right? We talk so much about that in the spiritual community. But if you've been on your path for a while, there's probably a lot of things that you have tried to create for yourself that just haven't happened. This is just one of the most frustrating things about the spiritual path is that we know we are creators. We have all the tools of manifestation and they've worked great for certain things. But for most of us, there's those couple things that we just can't budge. And it is super frustrating. So one thing that has kind of happened in the spiritual community is that a lot of us have built up very large reservoirs of disappointment, where we have tried to create things, we have wanted things for ourselves, we have had needs that haven't been met, and what happens is we get really disappointed when those things haven't happened. And this can be something that we're very conscious of, or it can be something that is deeply unconscious, where we try to stay positive, we try to stay neutral about it, and we don't realize how absolutely crushed we actually are. So the P's wanted to chat with us a little bit about that in today's video, because according to them, what they're seeing in lightworkers and starseeds is that many of us have huge pools of disappointment and despair and frustration for all the times we have tried to create things and it hasn't happened. Because one of the things that most of us have been taught on our spiritual path is how to create something, how to visualize and think positive and all those things that are our favorite topics in the spiritual community. But for a lot of us, it hasn't really manifested, hasn't landed. And so what happens is we get so disappointed about it. But the more you use these tools of trying to create things in your life, trying to manifest, what can happen very easily to our human mind is we get really aware that we don't have those things, right? The more time you spend visualizing what you want, the more you are slapped in the face with the fact that you don't have it. It is just kind of how this process tends to work in humans, right? Because we've heard the guides talk so much about how important it is for us to use our imagination, put our attention on what we want to create. But the unintended backlash is that we tend to get super aware that it hasn't happened. And for a while, we're kind of patient with it. We know this doesn't happen instantly, but over time, a lot of us have built up huge walls of disappointment. And we don't always realize how much of that energy we're holding. And this is something that I have been realizing was a huge problem for me because I would spend so much time doing the imagination thing, the visualization thing, and in lots of areas of my life, it worked. So I had no doubt that the tools worked. But then on those couple issues that weren't shifting, I would get super discouraged, super disappointed. And so what the P's have been talking about recently is how big of an issue this is in the spiritual community, because we've gotten our hopes up that things are changing only to be disappointed, or that this was going to happen or that was going to happen, and we haven't seen it. So just as humans, it's very easy to slide into a lot of disappointment, frustration, feeling over it, feeling even a sense of very deep despair. And so what happens is we can sometimes accumulate a lot of this energy without realizing it. And this energy of despair and disappointment and frustration is what blocks what we're trying to create. So the P's wanted to kind of start to bring this to our attention, to make us aware how much of this energy we may actually be holding. So one way you can kind of evaluate this in yourself is to just think back over the past couple years of what you've been trying to create for yourself that hasn't actually happened. And then as you think about those things that haven't landed in your bank account or your driveway, how do you feel about them? For most of us, we get pretty discouraged. And so what happens is we're holding, without realizing it, a lot of that energy in our field. And what that does is it just projects out into our future, which means we project disappointment into our future, which means that's what we get back. Situations that make us feel disappointed. So the P's wanted to bring our attention to this so that we could start to move this energy out of our field. So if you are realizing you might have an issue with this that needs a little attention, one of the things that the P's are encouraging us to do is start to process or use the tool that they always talk about, which is integration. That's how we break down and neutralize negative energies. And they've talked in lots of past videos about that, how you actually do that. But this tool will help us start to clear our energy fields of the energy of frustration, disappointment, even despair, which is what a lot of us really feel when we look at the status of the world around us, right? Even if we don't think about it all the time, for a lot of us, the energy is there. So if this is something that you recognize you could use some work on, these are encouraging us to do our integration work on the issue of disappointment, because nothing is more disappointing than not getting what you want, of not having your needs met, because it makes us doubt who we are as creator beings. And we know that we are the creator of everything. So we're ready to start creating what we want. But what puts the emergency brake on that process is the energy of disappointment, when we are very hyper aware of how much hasn't manifested, because our brain starts to form the association that when we want something, we don't get it. And that sets up a nasty belief system that this doesn't work. And then the mind starts to play with that, like a dog with a bone, right? Because the ego mind loves it when it has something to stir up trouble about. So one of the things that can happen if we have this energy of disappointment in our field is it blocks everything we're trying to create. So we're just essentially shooting ourselves in the foot. But one of the first things is just to realize we're holding that energy. Because as the P's always tell us, everything is just energy. It can always be moved, always be changed, always be shifted. So this is one of those ones that can be kind of a stealth energy, that we just don't stop to think how much disappointment we actually have. And if you have been on your spiritual path for a while, chances are good you've got quite a lot of this energy, because we are particularly vulnerable to that in the spiritual community, because we know we are creators. We have the tools of manifestation. And so we're kind of uniquely positioned to be disappointed when we see them not working. Right? Whereas the average person might have no idea how creation works. So if things happen or don't, they don't really think too much about it. But when you know you are a creator and you know that whatever is happening, you created it, it can be a recipe for disappointment, because we're just very aware that we don't have it, that it didn't work. So this is a great opportunity in the current energies to start processing our disappointment, because just the past 4 or 5 years on this spiritual path for a lot of the community has generated a lot of this energy, because we thought certain things were going to happen in a certain way. And when we don't have things play out the way we're expecting, we generate the energy of disappointment, of frustration, of doubt in our abilities, in our tools. And so all that does, unfortunately, is ripple forward into our future. So what the P's wanted to share in today's video is just to bring this to our awareness, because as we know, once we've identified an energy, we can process it, we can release this. And that's when we start to see things changing very quickly. So that's what the P's wanted to chat with us about in today's video, to help us start to free ourselves from the energy of disappointment, doubt, despair that can kind of creep up on us. So I hope this has helped you. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button and the like button if you haven't done that yet. I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.